Hello, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to look at a little bonus idea. We're going to build on the previous example, which was taking our agent swarm program and then rendering it using sprites or predefined images. And we could do this with any of the other examples as well. What we're going to do is we're going to draw to an off-screen canvas, basically draw into an image itself or a texture, and then we'll be able to use that to quickly create some symmetry and some interesting effects that way. So this is kind of the sketch where we had left off. We had our agents here moving around and being visually represented by these shapes. So there's actually a couple of tweaks we could do before we talk about drawing off screen here. One of those tweaks is I just noticed the way that these objects are moving, right? They're not actually, the flower is not actually oriented in the direction of the agent, and that just has to do with the layout of my images. When we drew the rectangles for the agent, we drew horizontal rectangles, and the images actually have more of a vertical orientation. So what I could do here is just add, 45 degrees, actually 90 degrees to the rotation, and now they're all of a sudden they should be moving more in the direction. They're like now pointing in the direction where they're moving. So that's just like a small visual tweak here. The other thing we didn't implement is we could also vary their size over time in the same way we used to modulate the stroke weight. And the way we would do this is by throwing a scale using that same S component. Now, this scale number here is way too big, right? We don't want scale to vary between 1 and 10. So instead, we're going to get scale to vary between something small, like 0.2 and 1. So now the size of our assets is also being modulated by this sine wave, much in the same way that we were modulating the thickness of the lines before. Now we're also kind of changing the size of these images over time, just to create a little bit more movement and a little bit more interest in our composition. So 0.2, that might actually be too small even. So let's make that a little bit more. So they're going to vary between half the size and the full size of the images. All right, so let's talk about this idea of drawing into an off-screen canvas. What that means is that we can do all of our drawing in P5.js into a separate object, which is not the actual canvas. We can think of it as like a blank image, right? Or you can think of it as a layer, something like this. So we're going to create an empty image. We're going to call it, I'm going to create a variable here. I'm going to call it off for short for off-screen graphics. Okay. I'm using a short name here because you'll see we're going to append this name to a lot of the drawing commands that we're doing. So in setup here, we're going to go and create this off-screen graphics object. We're going to use the createGraphics command. And just so we don't have to change too much about the rest of our program, we're going to make this the same size as the width and height of our sketch. But technically, if we wanted to create a symmetry effect, we could also imagine we could probably just draw in only half of the window, right? So creating a tall but narrow off-screen graphics. And but then we would also have to go and change our wrap behavior, how the agents are being randomly created, their random positions and so forth. So we're going to keep it simple and just create our off-screen graphic to be the whole size of the window, even though it might end up being a little bit wasteful. So once you have an off-screen graphic object, what you can do is anytime you do a drawing command, so something that affects the drawing on the screen or the state of the drawing, like setting the fill or the stroke or the background, you can go and put off in front of it. So instead of drawing on the main canvas, you're going to be drawing on this off-screen or this off-screen graphic object. So let's go through our program here and find all of the commands where we're actually drawing something. And conveniently for us, they're all inside this render function. So we don't actually need direct mode, so I'm going to delete it. and we're going to add, so now we're going to set the image mode to be on this off-screen object. We're not using the stroke anymore. Let's clean up here a bit, things that we're no longer using. Then we're going to do push on this off-screen canvas. We're going to translate and rotate and scale on it. We're going to set the tint on this off-screen canvas, and you can see as I'm doing these commands, like this is drawing less and less stuff. We're going to draw the image off-screen, and then we're going to do pop on the off-screen canvas also. And now we're just left with nothing because we've moved all of our drawing code. It's no longer affecting the main canvas, it's affecting this off-screen canvas, which we call off. So all of our drawing commands are now operating on this off-screen image. So if we wanted to see the results here, so we're doing background, all right, so that's fine. If we wanted to see the off-screen canvas, we could draw it using the image command. So we have off, and we're going to draw it at 0, 0. So now we're back to where we started, except the big difference is we've drawn all of our information is now inside this this graphics object, which behaves like an image. Which means, you know, we could change, for example, the image mode to center. Right? And you can see we've now shifted the image mode to center. This is now an image we can draw, which contains all of our sketch. Which means I could also shift this down here to height over 2, right? So now we're only seeing half of our sketch, right? And because it's an image, we could take this image and we could flip it over, right? So if we translate over to the other edge of the window and then use scale to invert the image, we can get a really nice symmetry effect, kind of like what we did in last week's image grid example. So let's translate the origin so that it is moved all the way over to the edge, right, over here. And then we're going to do a scale of -1, but only along the x-axis. And then we're going to draw our image again, the exact same image we have on the left. We're going to draw it again. And now this is the effect that we get. So because we've rendered on this this off-screen graphic, it becomes really easy now to make copies of it, to draw it in different places, or even to create this really common effect, but really effective, using symmetry, right? Where we're going to be drawing our image and then reflecting it to create just more interesting patterns. So now we have this symmetry thing going. We could even do like 4 corners of this, kind of like we did in the image grid example. So that can be also a really nice quick trick to generate interest from a scene, by shifting your graphics to some off-screen image and then being able to manipulate it. Now in this example here, we're actually wasting half of the graphics we spend time rendering, because our full canvas is actually the entire width. So we could do something where, and see if I make my image wider, it doesn't actually resize, so I'm losing the symmetry there. We could do a little trick here where maybe we're going to scale the whole thing by half so we can fit the entire screen inside our window. So we're going to try that. I'm going to scale everything by 0.5. So now, because we're only manipulating an image, right, everything is smaller. And and then I'm going to translate and bring it back to the center, like so, and then maybe bring it down as well, so it's centered. Cool. So now you can see this rectangle over here. This was our originally was our entire frame, right? But because we're now drawing it off screen, we can see 1/2. And then we've mirrored it to create the other half. And that makes for, you know, a pretty interesting effect. Maybe we'll add a few more agents to the simulation here, make it a little bit more interesting more quickly. Yeah, and again, we retain the same controls as before, right? We could pause it. We could export this as an image if we wanted to. And just for fun, let's look at it in a new window so we can see this a little bit better. And yeah, we're creating this kind of like widescreen effect here by taking our what used to be our entire window, right? I'm scaling it by 0.5, drawing it first on the left, and then drawing it again on the right, except mirrored that time. And just to drive the point home that this is a separate canvas, I can actually set a different background color. And then I'm going to set an initial background on my off-screen image. By default, the off-screen image is transparent. And now if I wanted to, I have these, I could have a totally different background here. I could put some, black bars or another color altogether. So yeah, this is a cool little trick that you can apply to any of the ideas we've seen so far. And the concept is move your rendering off screen, and then you have an image that you can manipulate using some of the techniques we've learned up until now. All right, so that's it for this little bonus lesson. I'll see you in the code exercise video where I'm going to explain what I want you to work on for this week.